She squeezed my hand gently as the music suddenly lifted in tempo. "Dancing time," she said. "Will you dance with me?" I took her hand and she led me into a widening circle of people that was soon bounded by another and another. Mary danced unself-consciously, generously, and with a charming lack of talent. Mary laughed as the dance grew faster and the dancers struggled to keep pace, falling over one another. The circles broke apart and reformed, weaved in and out of each other and switched places. The hole Adam left was filled, a little, by each pair of hands. Having been drawn apart by the dance, I suddenly found myself back in Mary's arms, and this time when she smiled at me, I saw real happiness in her eyes. When the dance grew too fast, Mary spun me out of the circles, both of us breathless and laughing, and we walked together to the graveside. "Grief doesn't last forever, you know," she said. "It does," I said. "It flows in and out like the tide, but the pain changes eventually." "What does it change into?" she asked, turning to face me with a frightening, intense focus. "Thank you," she said, and stepped back to make a space between us. I knelt on the loose dirt beside the grave, wondering about the soul of the man I'd eaten. His soul sat so lightly within me that I didn't feel it at all. I was no closer to him than a passing stranger. Despite all of that, he had changed my life. I wasn't sure whether I should be furious or grateful. The answer was neither. Adam hadn't known he would die, and I hadn't known my talent would be guessed at, let alone used. I sighed, accepting my fate, and lifted my eyes. Knox stood at the edge of the forest. The bear's legs were tensed, ready to spring. Her ears were pricked. We stared at one another. Knox was snow white, easy to see in the shadows. Her eyes glinted red under the full moon. I wondered if this was the night I would face my enemy and die like my sister. How appropriate that the bear should kill me so soon after I'd stopped running from my fate. Adam, my sister, and I would fly together to the other land. I wanted so badly to see Evelyn again, healed and whole and new. But I didn't want to die. And I didn't want Hollowvale to turn into the frightened, bloody town my home village had become. My heart beat harder, and I rose slowly to my feet. The bear grinned at me, her tongue lolling in anticipation of a kill. "Great one, great one." It took me far too long to hear Mary's voice. She'd seen Knox too. Of course she had. It was coming for all of us. The bear paced towards me as Hollowvale gradually began to understand the urgency of my screaming. The closest to me saw Knox and ran to their homes, yelling their own alarms. Waves of screaming rose and fell and rose again, and the remaining people broke apart like dead leaves blown all at once from their tree. Mary clenched her fists like a bare-knuckled boxer and braced her feet to fight. "No, please," I begged her. "This is my fate, not yours." "Come with me," she said. "You get safe first, and I'll think about it." She frowned, but she listened to me. In a matter of moments, I stood alone at the graveside. So much for raising the village. The bear stopped playing and ran at me. Nox leapt over Adam's grave, graceful despite her size. For a long moment I was enthralled, gazing at the spectre without any fear. Just before she reached me, I fell flat, grabbing a handful of dirt and flinging it at the bear's face as she sailed over my prone body. Grave dirt. Nox landed easily and twisted to face me again, snarling in fury. I rolled sideways before she pounced again and hit my leg against the temporary wooden marker carved with Adam's name. The bonfire in the square was still burning, and after images danced across my vision as I swung back to the bear. I couldn't see her. Nox had circled around me. Hot breath poured down the back of my neck. I scrambled desperately on the loose soil of the fresh grave, trying to turn around, trying to stand. Nox's sharp teeth missed my throat, tearing into the flesh of my back. I felt those jaws tighten and shake the meat of me until a piece tore away. Hot blood soaked my ruined clothes. Enough. I wasn't going to curl up and die. Nox didn't belong to the living world. I did. The bear grabbed the chunk of meat she'd taken from me with her paws and ripped and tore at it with her teeth. Her mouth and chest were dark with my blood, shining black in the moonlight. I struggled to my feet and ran to the fire, keeping my eyes down to hold onto what little remained of my night vision. At the fire's edge I searched for the right weapon, my eyes stinging in the smoke. I spotted 2 decent branches, heavy enough to hurt and light enough to swing. One of them lay half out of the fire, the other was fully aflame. I grabbed them both, ignoring the pain as fire blistered my left hand. Hollowvale was empty, silent except for indistinct shouting and the crackle of fire. I turned to wait for the bear, with the fire at my back. The silver concealed at my hip burned with its own magical fire. I took a slow breath and watched Nox lope towards me, her mouth twisted in another snarl. Her red eyes never left mine. I waited, unmoving, and saw her hesitate for the first time. She'd never seen me stand up to her. I pounced, beating her across the face with my burning weapons, one after the other. She yipped in pain and twisted away from me. I laughed like a berserker and hit her again and again, gagging on the smell of burning fur. Nox shook herself and stared at me. There was too much intelligence in those blood-red eyes. Before I could hit her again, she attacked, knocking me over and snapping at my exposed neck. I lifted my weapons to block those bloody jaws. The bear knocked them aside like twigs, gripping me with her claws. My hands grabbed helplessly for purchase, finding only fur that was already slippery with my blood. I wrapped my arms around the bear's neck and pushed with all my might, but I just wasn't strong enough. Nox took over, rolling us both into the bonfire on purpose. We howled in pain as the fire burned us. Nox rolled us back out of the fire, pinning me to the ground with one massive paw. I knew I was going to die. I spat out my last breath in an animalistic scream, feeling my silver blistering my skin with its heat. The words of the old speech spilled out of me unbidden. Give your soul to me. I will carry it in my heart of hearts. I will carry you all my life. I will carry you to the other land. Nox roared, and I screamed as the burning pain travelled up my bleeding limb to my heart and settled there. The bear released me suddenly, and I hurled myself backwards and out of danger. I stared as Nox's eyes changed colour from bloody red to ordinary, non-magical brown. She didn't move again. Drained of her magical soul, she was dead. I was going to live.